This is episode 1, Media Lab Podcast.
Yeah.
Armando, it's good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I guess just to get started, can you tell me sort of the first experience you had in video, media, photo production? Like what's something like
so
as a
we're going
kid?
to jump right in, huh?
Yeah, like as a young kid.
Okay.
When did you pick up a camera?
Man, I think like a lot of people, I grew up watching Hollywood movies.
Right.
I grew up in Vegas, so I was very much influenced by glamour and glitz, of what Vegas was, and then in conjunction with Hollywood and Hollywood films and actors and actresses, and I was always sort of like had this romantic relationship with Hollywood and films and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, the big band players, stuff like that. It's happening all in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas. Vegas, it's a city of sin for a reason, and so I was exposed to a lot of things like that in entertainment and media since I was just a very young child.
Nice. You never really like picked up a camera though, you would say?
Oh gosh, yeah. I definitely did. I mean, I think for me what happened was I liked the acting side of things.
Right.
Yeah. So I
like being in front of the camera.
I liked being in front of the camera,
fair,
not necessarily behind it. Yeah. And so I tried to become an actor, actually. I thought I was a mortgage broker at the time, and I was after college and everything. And I said, you know what? You only have one life. Let's go for it. I'm going to be an actor.
Hell yeah. Got it.
And for probably about a year, I really worked on it, man.
Nice.
I was in a play, and I took acting classes, and I was an extra a couple times.
What play it was?
I did like the holiday play. I played. I was Titus, the role of Titus in like the Christmas thing. It was like like the Easter play, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so I did have a couple. I met Jeremy Renner back in the day.
What?
Yeah,
cool.
He was barely starting out, man. So new, and but he was really interesting because like everyone was kind of screwing around on set and having fun and playing around, and he was extremely focused, like extremely focused. Very nice, polite, courteous, that kind of thing. But he was not messing around. He was not, and it was a very low budget film type thing. I don't even think it ever went to distribution. And it was, but he would like go to his trailer and like study his lines, come back out and act, and then go to his trailer and study his line. And in between, he would just kind of look at people, smile, say hi, and that was about it. And he was just you could tell he had like a very intense focus on. So I don't know. I kind of learned about acting at that point, but on that same set, there was someone else. I can't remember his name, but he's a well-known actor. And he actually, I was talking to him about acting in my career. He just kind of told me to really be in it for the long haul and like how long it really can take. And for a lot of people, it never really happens. Right. And there was another guy there who was kind of like, well, I'm doing a commercial I'm really excited about and making like 80 grand on this commercial. Yeah. But that was the only commercial he had. That was the only job he had the whole year. Yeah. So that was his income for the whole year.
That's how it goes though.
Yeah. I was like, whoa. And so there was, when I told someone on that set that I was a mortgage broker and like what my life was like, and mortgage brokering was cool, man. I used to come and go as I pleased. I got to ride around like in limousines, like schmoozing real estate agents.
In Vegas, right? Still?
This is actually in Arizona.
In Arizona, gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey, that's still a fancy smancy places in Arizona, man. Scottsdale.
Well, this mortgage company had a limousine that they would let the mortgage brokers use whenever they wanted. Yeah. So we would like drive around a limousine like schmoozing realtors. So I told him that. He was like, you know what, man? I wish I had your job. Like being an actor and like doing what I'm doing sucks.
Honestly, though. Like acting is hard. Like people are always say like, oh, these actors getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars just to sit in front of a camera. But it's difficult, It's not easy to pretend to be somebody else, let alone, being yourself is hard enough a lot of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was real. Yeah, so I kind of like got disheartened after that, man. And then I ended up when YouTube came out, I kind of got into I wanted to get into video. And so I ended up getting hooked up with this freelancer who was doing video, and he had like a giant camcorder, and like it was just crazy.
Was
back
it about
then.
like 2008?
Yeah, actually
Yeah,
it was in
there.
2008. Yeah. And
was he filming with tape still, or was it video?
It was video, it was
wow.
digital, but it was like we had to have the like, you know how we use those little, like a terabyte is like a little tiny SD card. Well, dude, like 1 gigabyte was a giant thing. It was like $800. It was crazy.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I hooked up with him. We tried to do some video, and I couldn't execute, you know, and I couldn't make it happen. And in conjunction with website and web design, I tried to do what we're doing with the Media Lab back in 2008, and I just didn't have the skill set that I needed. I didn't have the capital that we needed, and you know, and it was a failure. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of it was very upsetting to me, and then I kind of went back to sort of corporate life and kind of bounced around with all kinds of different jobs.
Right. I mean, so you're very entrepreneurial. And being an entrepreneur, you experience failure. That's just a part of life. Part of being an entrepreneur, you know, you risk a lot to get success. Mm-hmm. So what was like the first business you ever started? Well, the very first one, which is still very close to my heart, is my dad was a landscaper. He tried to have his business in landscaping, and he couldn't speak English very well. So he had me go up there with, you know, knocking on people's doors. I was only, you know, I don't know, 10, 11. Yeah. And I'd knock on people's doors and ask them if we can mow their lawns, you know. And we did it for cheap, dude. I want to say like $10 a lawn or something like that, $20 a lawn. It's super cheap. And this is in Nevada still,
too? This is in Nevada. That was the
100-degree weather and stuff.
Yeah, that was my first sort of dabble in and I hated it, man. Like mowing those lawns, and to this day, the smell of like grass being mowed lawn brings me back to that time and how difficult it was, and it makes me like not want to be wherever I smell that, you know, unless it's a golf course.
Do you mow your own lawn now?
I don't, man. To this day, I don't. Yeah, I pay someone
progress.
to do it. Yeah, it is. It is. So that's probably the first thing I did back in the day. And then, but even when I was 19, I ended up. This thing called the Latin American Resource Company, and what that was is I had this like system that I could teach people how to speak Spanish, pronounce Spanish words using English syllables.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I developed this like random system, and I tried selling that, and that didn't work. You know, about a year later, I just couldn't. You know, it's just to like own a business and run a business. It takes a very precise skill set that is required. And when you're young, I think in general, it takes time to acquire that skill set, you know. And so I think that's why my early years and my late teens and early 20s, even though I was very entrepreneurial, I had sort of like failed venture after failed venture.
Well, and also not just that, but by failing and continuing to fail, you're gaining those skills. And each time you fail, you gain a new skill. At least you hope to gain a new skill. So eventually, when you get to that end result, you know, you'll find some success.
I think you're right. I think I don't believe in failing. Okay. I don't believe in failing, and I don't believe you have to fail.
Really?
Yes, I do not believe that whatsoever. I think you should not fail and do everything in your power to succeed.
Of course.
Don't fail, you know, and so I think that
but you don't think you've like learned from your failures? You wouldn't say that?
I think I've learned more from my successes.
Yeah,
I've learned a lot more from successes and from wins and from other people who have won. I think failing is a little overrated, right. Honestly, because I know kind of that whole way of thinking of like, you know, sort of fail your way to success.
Oh yeah, they teach you it in grade school.
Yeah, and I think there is some truth to that for sure. But I think more learning from your successes and learning from people who are successful. I think back then I had no one, dude. I was like, I came from a single mom. You know, I had a single mom. My dad was not really around much. I didn't even get along with him very well as I got older. And, you know, I really didn't have any guidance. And I was also very hard-headed and stubborn back then. It was hard for me to learn from anybody. And, you know, it was very, very challenging. I think for those reasons, I was just sort of like kept failing, you know, time after time.
Yeah, and I think, and also, I agree with you completely, you know. I think failure is overrated. And to a certain point, I think a lot of people fail without taking the next step and saying what went wrong and how can I do better next time. I think a lot of people fail and just think, okay, that was it. or they think, I'm gonna just do the same thing again and hope it works out differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think also what failure a lot of times stops people and makes them quit.
True.
That's the thing I think that sucks, is if you can just fail and then just don't quit, just keep going, and that's what I've done over the years with all the different ventures that I have not succeeded with.
Right.
I'm relatively young. Maybe this venture won't succeed, but you bet your ass I'm going to get back up and keep going at this point,
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like I'll probably work until the day I drop dead.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, retirement doesn't sound nice, just sitting around greeting people in front of a Walmart, getting your Social Security check. Nah.
I couldn't see myself retiring ever, no. but yeah, it's nice to kind of at least have the option to work or not work.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's crazy too to think about this, right? Social Security 40 years ago, the age was 67, I believe, somewhere around there. 40 years ago, the life expectancy was like 62. Now life expectancy is like 76.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just a little thing to go down, Social Security and retirement's crazy too.
I know, it's a different time that we're living in now with you. It's not like before where you could sort of have a pension fund and rely on Social Security and all that kind of stuff. I feel like in this day and age, you have to be like sort of have massive success. That's sort of my retirement plan, is just like have massive success and do things that I completely love. And I think that is part of the way to success, is find something you really love and then work really, really hard on it for like a really, really long time. And then and then on the way there, you can have some financial success for sure.
Yeah. Do you think, I've been hearing like even $1 million saved up isn't enough to retire nowadays? No. Like you need more, you need like $2 or $3 million to retire like comfortably.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
No, that makes sense. I mean, if you just do the math on the interest and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And inflation.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a friend who is looking to retire, and he was telling me, his magic number is 3 million. If he can just have like 3 million, he can live off of the interest and make somewhere around like 80,000 a year off the interest through some investments that he knows about. And then he could retire, And so he's not quite there, but he's getting older, and he wants to get there as soon as possible. So, it takes a lot of money these days.
So let me ask you, if someone is just looking to start a business, right? Mm-hmm. Say you're like my age, 23 years old, you have the world ahead of you, don't have a ton of debt, you have an all right job. Like, what would you recommend to somebody outside of like choosing something they love? Like outside of that, what would you say to them? Yeah,
that's a good question. And I honestly think starting businesses is a little overrated also. Yeah. I really do. It's extremely stressful. It's extremely risky. I don't know that I necessarily like recommend it to anyone unless you have some sort of new idea that there's really no way to implement it without doing a business yourself, and that's kind of rare, I think, still, because you can implement ideas inside of organizations, if you're resourceful. I mean, I think with my advice to a young person would be look more for intrapreneurship opportunities. Right. So intrapreneurship is where you can be entrepreneurial within an organization, and that organization is very like supportive of the entrepreneurial spirit. So that's exactly what we're doing with Foothills Roofing and Exteriors, and what we're doing with the Media Lab now, which I really enjoy working with people who are entrepreneurial, because there's a certain level of ambition, ideas that we can help support and implement. And I'm very entrepreneurial, so I like people working with like-minded individuals. And like we want to create like a environment that is supportive of that, so that people feel like they can grow within an organization. And that's what I would kind of advise is find an organization who fits some of those still, not everyone is entrepreneurial, but if you are and you want to start a business, I would more look at an organization that supports the entrepreneurship philosophy. And I think you can be happy, and you can, CEOs of companies make millions and millions of dollars. They're not business owners. They're not entrepreneurs. They don't own the company.
Yeah, they have to answer to the stockholders, and the stockholders are not nice people most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, the point is that you can have a lot of financial success and work within an organization.
Right.
And there's a lot to be said for that. A lot less risk, a lot less stress. There could be benefits, lots of fringe benefits that that you may not even think about until you're actually in the organization for a long time. And then once you're there for a long time, they might, the organization might buy some kind of a summer home that now you can go take your family to twice a month.
Office car.
You get an office, you get a car. You're like, whoa, I get to drive this car around. Company supplied. Here you go. And so those kind of fringe benefits, a lot of times I feel like it's hard for people to see when you kind of first get started in a company, but they come along. They happen down the road. Like guarantee. I mean, they happened for me when I was in an organization as an entrepreneur. I was in an organization for 7 years as an entrepreneur, before I didn't want to start this business, man. Like,
felt like you had to almost.
I felt like I really did. I felt like I really had to. And mainly it was because I had these ideas, like, for the roofing company, it was a lifetime workmanship warranty.
Right.
I couldn't get anybody to buy into that. It was also, I wanted to be an exclusive installer of impact resistant products. Couldn't get anybody to buy into that. I wanted to buy some equipment that's really expensive, and I couldn't get buy-in from my partners. And roofing companies in general don't like to buy expensive equipment like the one that I wanted. I wanted this like a crazy 2-story hydraulic lift, and so so I knew that I had to get Foothills off the ground and get Foothills going in order to implement those ideas.
Yeah, and a lot of these businesses and markets, like especially, for example, roofing, right? A lot of it is controlled by old money still. And I think that's why you found sort of your niche to work out of and build your own entrepreneurial company, is you realize that there's a lot of old processes and there's a lot of old ways of doing things, and this market needs an update. Would you say you kind of tackled it like that?
Absolutely. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, digital marketing,
right.
We're in the digital age, and there's still a lot of people that are wishing that we're not in the digital age. And so
no going back.
There is no going back. There's only going forward. And the ones who don't get on board, in my opinion, they're already they're going out of business. Small businesses that are not on board with the digital age are going out of business. And it's really hard to say how bad it will get for a lot of the businesses who don't, adapt to the digital age.
Yeah. I mean, look at the big businesses that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody would have thought. Sears, a 130-year-old company going out of business, bankrupt now. Yeah. Toys R Us, a 60, 70-year-old company going out of business.
Yeah.
It's really
what's
crazy.
sad about that too is a lot of those businesses had the opportunity, especially Toys R Us. They had the opportunity to go online, and they chose to just sell their products on Amazon instead. And I don't know the details of all of that, but I think there's something to be said that they didn't think the digital age, was as powerful as it actually is. And I think there still is a lot of power even in just podcasting. Podcasting is relatively underdeveloped right now. It's definitely trending, but it's fairly technical in my opinion. Definitely people
audio, sound, lighting, you need all of it, to have a good looking, good sounding podcast. It's not easy.
It is not easy. And I know because I hit my head against the wall with it for a long time, man. I tried to get a podcast going and I just couldn't. I had, mics that would bleed out. I had, I couldn't really figure it out on my computer, how to edit the intro, the outro. There's just a lot. I mean, and you can figure it out, of course, but like what I love about what's happening at the Media Lab here is like, people can just kind of walk right in and bring their guests and create some really cool content, post it on the internet for everyone to see, and then then share it on social media sites and get organic reach. And that alone can create more revenue for any business.
Right. I guess I did have one more question, more about like sort of the entrepreneurial side of things.
Yeah.
So, and sort of more on the advice side of things as well. So if you were to say to somebody who feels like they're stuck, like in a corporation or something, say they do have that entrepreneurial spirit, but as we were just talking, there's still a lot of these companies that are still stuck in some old ways. Like what are some good ways to sort of try and bring progress to these sort of older companies,
I wouldn't do that. I would get a side hustle going. Get a side hustle going.
Nice.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, you can't change someone that doesn't want to change. You can't change an organization that doesn't want to change. I mean, that's something that I've learned over the years too, is that whatever the organization or the individual needs to want to change, and if they want to change, then that's a different story. You can definitely, a young person or an entrepreneurial person, or not necessarily the age, but like that, you can then, ask to implement the ideas, and the organization, the company who's receptive to change will use them.
Yeah.
And really, even if they think that the idea is not good, if they want to change, they'll do it anyways, because they just want to inspire. An entrepreneurial organization will want to inspire the person with the idea and encourage them to keep their ideas going. Like,
that's how you know that's the company you should work for, because they're willing to take ideas and run with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if they don't, then you should get a side hustle going ASAP. Yeah. Right. Yeah. We're hiring at the Media Lab. I'm just kidding.
What do you have any other ideas for like side hustles? So I know like media creation and marketing is sort of like one of your side hustles. What's something that you think is interesting right now?
I mean, I don't, man. I think what people have to do a little soul searching. You know, if you're going to do a side hustle, I think you really should do some soul searching and like figure out, do something that you can definitely like enjoy, you know, sort of like making a hobby, turning a hobby into full-time work, you know, is very, very challenging to do. And it takes a long time. And I think you have to experiment with different ideas. So I wouldn't be too quick to rush that one idea is going to be the one. Like, do the one that you think, like, if you like to travel, maybe, you know, figure out some kind of travel website or some kind of travel blog or a travel video even, or, just getting really creative with how you can turn your hobby into, revenue producing, a revenue producing, organization.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about stuff like that before, where it's like, you know, in terms of marriage to ideas, and you don't want to be stuck with an idea. Say you have like this side hobby that you kind of like, maybe you're like tutoring kids or something, but you're really good at it. And suddenly you have like 30 parents asking you to tutor their kids, and they're paying you really well. And like, oh shit, now I'm a tutor for the rest of my life.
Well, I tell you what, if you like teaching, right now is a great opportunity, I think. In our office building, there's a small school, and it's one person. Yeah, she teaches like elementary education type thing. I want to say they're in like 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, and they have an office here, and they go out and play outside sometimes, and she's their teacher, and I think it's like her business, her small business. So I think there's a big opportunity with education and all kinds of educational things, because like with the pandemic, like the education system has taken a huge hits. I mean, it was already,
I say you went to public school, right? You went to like high school.
I went to public school, and I didn't have the greatest experience either, man. I mean, I was, I'd hate to say, but I was choked when I was in 5th grade. I was choked by my teacher.
By your teacher?
Yeah. I was choked by my teacher. I was in 5th grade, and I was also.
Are they fired? Are they out of the school?
I've attempted to out them occasionally, but I haven't done that yet.
There? They still work there?
Yeah, they enjoy a pretty good reputation, actually. Sheesh. Yeah, and then I was also, I was spanked. I had my hair pulled when I was in kindergarten. I was, I feel like I still succeeded. I barely succeeded. The only saving grace that I had in public school, man, was my high school creative writing teacher. Right. In 10th grade, I took her English class, and then a senior year, she really took me under her wing, and she made me the editor of the literary magazine for our high school, and she believed in me, and I was not going down a good path, man. I was kind of like, kind of hanging out with the wrong kids and that kind of thing. And she believed in me, though, and she gave me like a lot of confidence. And if it weren't for her, I probably wouldn't have graduated high school.
That is like the double-edged sword of like public school systems, right? Because a lot of it is just so much shit. Yeah. But on the other end, like you said, I had the exact same thing where all of these teachers, terrible, all the kids were terrible, I grew up in like small town Kansas, and so completely underfunded. Like the football coach was teaching history. You know what I'm saying? But there was that one English teacher, and it was the same for me. It was an English teacher.
Oh, really?
She just took me under her wing. She made me debate team captain, and just really showed me how to do things.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, and so that's, like I said, double-edged sword. Well,
I still keep in touch with that teacher too.
Yeah, same.
No, do you really?
Yeah.
We're still we keep in touch through Facebook, even through text. She sends me texts every once in a while. I text her back, and it's really it's pretty awesome to have someone like that. And that is the result of the public education system. So it's not. I mean, right now I feel like it's kind of in shambles because of the pandemic. But even before it was broken, but now it's there was definitely some good things about it that I experienced for sure.
Yeah. In terms of being like entrepreneurial, and you were saying that the school system's just breaking down entirely. Like, do you think there's there's some like advancements, some money to be made in that?
In terms of like if you're young and you like to teach,
Yeah.
figure out a way to make some money on that, because I mean, even just opening up a small private school, you know, like really small, like what we have here, you could have one office, and like, you know, at this point, parents are so desperate for education, in-person learning, that I mean, you could, you know, even just through social media marketing potentially. I don't really know. I haven't given that much thought, but there's just definitely, I see an opportunity in education right now.
I mean, you got to think how parents are feeling right now. I mean, so March, we're in Colorado. March is when most of everything shut down. We're like midway through November. Those kids have been with their parents pretty much every day, right? I mean, like very little break, and a lot of it is homeschooling. A lot of it is the parents, you know,
it's
being
a big
stuck
problem
with
right now. Oh my gosh, it's kind of you know, I feel for the parents out there. I'm a parent, you know, and I'm just,
you have a 5-year-old, right, buddy?
I have a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old,
and
and we just we went to we looked into an independent school about 2 years ago. So and we started the process, and you know, it's expensive, but like I was always kind of second guessing myself. Should we do this? We should do public school and like that kind of thing. But when the pandemic started and like everything was going down, like and then he got to go to in-person school still, and they had all these protocols. They like really dialed it in, very systematic, because it's a small school. He's still able to do in-person learning, and we're just so grateful that we actually went ahead and did that, because I feel like it's one of the smartest things we've done as parents. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of independent schools.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I did one thing too. I know we were talking about this earlier today as well, just kind of like the start of Foothills and the company you're with before. Could you like go into that a little bit? Because I know that there was some conflict maybe.
Yeah. I was telling, we had lunch for that's right, and with a colleague, and he was asking me how Foothills kind of got going, and you know, I generally do think starting a business is overrated, dude. I'm not just like bullshit.
No, you had to, like you were saying, you had to start this.
Yeah, the only reason I would much rather have been a partner in the old company and stayed a partner. The only problem is that the owner wouldn't put things in writing, you know, and we went for 3 years without anything in writing. And so I just wasn't comfortable with that after some time. And I also was just sort of like a cauldron of ideas, man. Like I had, you know, like the ones we talked about, and I just could not get buy-in from the partners, you know. It was really difficult. And so, so it was quite, demoralizing, unfortunately, you know, and I'm not speaking ill of them. They're fine people. But I it was just me personally. I had this like, I knew, like, to me, like, it's really important. Like, I think of like the day I'm going, you know, when I pass away, like when I look back on my life, am I going to be proud of the way I lived, you know? And so there's definitely, I've made a lot of mistakes, but there's also this aspect of like, I saw myself like, if I just stayed, because I did have it good. Okay. Like I had it really good, and I could have just stayed and just kind of gone on. But there was something inside of me. I was like, if I look back on my deathbed, like I will have regretted not doing this. Yeah. You know, and it started growing and growing really, really, really big. But I have to say, if they would have came to me with my damn contract,
things would have been way different.
I would have been, you know what? It's cool. I'm good. It's hard to say that now, but like if they would have come out, well, for one, they could have done a contract that basically would have locked me in, you know, and they put a pretty intense like anti-competition clause in there.
20 years after, you can't do anything with roofs.
Yeah, and honestly, I would have signed it because I was actually pretty happy, but. And so, you know, I don't know, looking back though, I have to say, like, I wouldn't be what we're doing now, which is like with the Media Lab and with Foothills and like the way it's grown and like everything that's kind of like going on, like with my life. I'm like, I'm so happy and I'm very like fulfilled, and I want to continue in that trajectory. And I think if I would have stayed, I don't know that would have happened. So it's, you know, life is very, very tricky. It's hard to know, for certain things, but I do think that that I made the right choice, and I'm going to keep working really hard on this. But the Media Lab stuff is amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's like this is all Media Lab stuff. You know, making the videos we've been doing, helping other people making videos, like that's been incredible.
Yeah, and I think going on what you're saying too, like building a business and starting a business, yeah, like it might not be the smartest thing. It might be super risky. In fact, you might be working way more and making way less money doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think there is something in a lot of people where it's, you know, a builder. You know, you have that builder sort of personality in you where you have to get out there and you have to seek growth, and you can't grow for other people.
Well, you can do that within an organization, though.
But it's like a feeling of like, I don't know, it's different, you know, when you're saying like I'm building on someone else's property and building a house, whereas this is my house and I'm building it. You know, it is different. It's different.
It's hard. If you have like that real strong itch, it's probably never going to get scratched even inside of an organization. You
like
know?
It's a personality for some people, you know, despite how dumb and how risky it can be, you know, like my dad is one of those people, you know.
Oh, really?
He's never had a successful business, but he's tried semi-truck driving. He's tried painting. He's tried construction, you know, he's tried almost everything. He's tried owning bars, liquor stores, hotels, and failed every single time. But he has that itch in him where he has to build.
You know, it's funny. My dad has the same thing.
It
might be where I get it from.
Right.
But yeah, I can relate to that, and I think a part of it is the skill set. You know, is my dad never had. You know, I believe a lot in personal development and education. You know, training and development. And so I've, over the years, man, I've done so many. People think my own accountant like looks at some of the training and development we do now, and she's like, "Why are you spending money on this? You're part of this training, you're part of that training, you're part of this training. You pay this coach, you pay that coach. Like, why are you paying so much money to this?" Like, well, we're successful.
Right.
It's not an accident that training and success come together. They're hand in hand, dude. Yeah. And that's one thing, like my dad kind of was very like, he thought things were like scams, you know?
Right.
And, you know, honestly, some things are scams, but you don't know until you get your hands dirty, you know? And so, but I have this like core thing, this weird limiting belief inside of me where like when someone comes to me with like some kind of coaching or training, I'm just like immediately jump to like, that's a scam, you know? And like, with some of the groups I'm in, like this group Arete, we had lunch with the guy from Arete today. I had that same thought even though I trusted them completely, but then, I just kind of, you know,
I feel the same way.
Ignored that, jumped in. Yeah, right. Now Arete is a huge part of my life and, you know, what I'm all about.
For me, it's like when I see somebody trying to teach me or coach me on something, I'm like, what are you selling? You know, because that's a huge thing now where it's like, try this 15 minutes of free coaching, and then at the end, they try and sell you on something, you know. It's
a lot of that is bunk, dude. Yeah, a lot of it is bunk. Yeah,
you got to be careful.
Arete, though, is a real deal.
Yeah, and that's like a business group. What exactly is that?
Yeah, that's a business group of high-achieving key salespeople, key managers, entrepreneurs, just very high-achieving people.
Like those networking groups are very useful. Would you say they're necessary or like?
I think I don't think they're necessary. Yeah. No, peer support groups I think are extremely useful, and I would recommend them. I don't think they're necessary to being successful at all. Right. I think if you have an idea and you have like some serious hard work ethic, and you can, you know. There's definitely some knowledge base. I mean, even Mark Zuckerberg had to go get some like CEO training, you know, and he was mentored by a lot of different people as well.
Steve Jobs would sneak into the UCLA classes to watch classes on font design.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people who are very successful have a growth mindset, and they know they need to keep learning and growing. That's what they teach us in Arete actually as well, to have a growth mindset, keep learning, training, growing. And I think that's part of where my dad sort of failed, was that he didn't really, you know, he used to ask me how to operate a computer for a long time. And I was like, Dad, look, please just go to the community college, just take the first class on keyboard, just how to operate a keyboard, you know? And he never did, you know, he never wanted to go take those classes. And like, I think that was just sort of a little sign of, you know, why those businesses didn't succeed, you know? And so, you know, if he's listening, he's probably going to give me a hard time later today.
No, I relate to that a lot too. Yeah. It's the same with my dad, you know, I mean, if he went to business school, got like a 2 or 4 year degree in business and learned how to make a business plan and how to ride out recessions, like those important things you need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's nice about this in the digital age is we can learn so much just by watching YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, and, I watch YouTube all the time on digital marketing. I just
Same,
kind of, you know, nerd out on it all day long, sometimes all night long, and just learn all about that stuff, you know, on my own time. I think that's part of what helps become successful too, is like a lot of people think, well, why am I going to learn that if I'm not getting paid? You know, and that's a huge hurdle I had to overcome. Like once I realized like I can learn stuff, I don't need anybody's approval to learn something. Or I don't need to get paid by anybody to learn something. I'm going to learn what I want to learn, and then I can apply that to, you know, my job or my business or, you know, whatever I'm working on. So
I think that's big too, because especially the university system, man, is crazy. Like you're saying, like you can go out and learn by yourself, but so many people feel the need to pay $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 every year just to read books. And, you know, and a lot of times you're not even in a classroom. Like this year, no one's, you know, you're still paying that money, but you're not in a classroom.
It's hard, man. It's crazy. It's weird. I don't know. Part of me is like, get a college education,
right,
you know, and even as an employer, that's like the first thing I look for.
Exactly.
You know, so I am sort of still steeped in that, but I don't necessarily need it to be like Ivy League or anything like. I think if you're going to get a college education, like cool, I think you should get one. I think some people, because of the public education has like failed us in so many ways. A college education helps you kind of get back on track to a certain extent. So even if you just go to community college for 2 years and then go to a state school for 2 years and keep it, you know, as cheap as possible with little as debt as possible.
That's the key.
That was a good way to go. Of course, that's easier. You know, I don't listen to my own advice. I went to a super expensive out-of-state school.
Right.
And
well, you learn from mistakes. You know, we're just talking. You learn from failures.
Well, I went to that school though, and I got sober from because I talk about it. I'm 18 years
at school.
While I was in school, you got
sober in college.
Yes, I went to a party college, and I partied a little too hard, and then I developed alcoholism, and then I had to go get help and get sober. And I've been sober 18 years now.
Well, congrats. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're pretty much done here. Yeah, it's been over 30 minutes. Thank you, though, Armando.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I learned a lot. Thank you for chatting with me. I hope I was able to impart any sort of wisdom, even if it was from yourself, you know?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love being in podcasts, and I'm going to be one on next Friday as well in the roofing industry, because I'm sort of building some name recognition in the roofing industry. And so
shout out your podcast and your Facebook.
Yeah, I have a podcast also called Roofing It podcast, the Roofing It podcast.
There you go.
Yeah, I think is that what it's called, or is it? Oh, yeah, just Roofing It. I forget the name
Apple,
of my own podcast.
Apple Podcast and Spotify and all those places.
You can find me on I think it's iTunes. A podcast like app or whatever. And also YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, Armando Jacox. You can find me there. I've got a lot of videos on YouTube. I love YouTube, you know, creating videos on YouTube. And so, I'm looking to build that up too. And I love all that kind of stuff. I love digital marketing, digital age. I think I wasn't always like that, but over the years, it's learning how important it is. And now I've kind of really embraced it. And now I'm like, you know, just full on in it. So, appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you, Armando.
See ya.